Elvis Presley was more than just a rock and roll legend. He was a cultural phenomenon who changed music forever. But behind the fame, there was a side to Elvis that the world rarely saw. In a hidden interview, Elvis revealed thoughts and feelings that were never meant for the public eye. This video delves into that secret conversation, exploring why Elvis became so famous and how his life and career shaped the music industry in ways that still echo today. What was the hidden interview about? Elvis Presley gave an intriguing interview in 1956 that many fans don't know about. It was for the now-defunct TV Guide magazine, but it was hidden from the public eye for decades. The interview gives a rare, candid glimpse into Elvis's thoughts on fame, his personal life, and how he dealt with the public's perception of him as a young rock and roll star. The interviewer, a reporter named Paul Wilder, spoke to Elvis at a time when he was skyrocketing to fame. Presley opened up about his discomfort with being labeled a bad influence on teenagers. He also shared how he felt about his critics, who accused him of being immoral because of his provocative stage moves and rock and roll sound. What makes this interview stand out is how raw and unguarded Elvis was, showing a side of him that was rarely visible in other public appearances. One notable part of the conversation was when Elvis admitted that he didn't fully understand why his music was creating such an uproar. He simply wanted to perform and entertain, but found himself at the center of a cultural battle over American value. He expressed frustration with being pigeonholed as nothing more than a heartthrob when he wanted to be recognized for his musical talent. Though it wasn't widely publicized at the time, the interview offers a window into the pressures and complexities Elvis faced at the height of his early fame. This moment, buried for decades, reveals the inner conflict between the public persona of the king and the young man trying to navigate the rapid rise to stardom. It's one of the few records of Elvis speaking openly and critically about his public image, making it a piece of history for those curious about the man behind the legend. But before we dive deeper into the hidden interview, let's go through Elvis's life, career, and legacy that made him a notable figure for many years until now. The Elvis Presley influence. Musical innovation. Elvis Presley is widely recognized for changing the music landscape. In the mid-20th century, as music was evolving, Elvis stood out by blending different styles like rock and roll, rhythm and blues, gospel, and country into a fresh, electrifying sound that appealed to a broad audience. Before Elvis, rock and roll was mostly an underground genre, but he brought it into the mainstream, making it a driving force in popular music. His unique sound captured the spirit of the younger generation, who were craving something new and exciting. Elvis's music wasn't just entertainment. It sparked a revolution that gave birth to rock and roll as we know it today. Charismatic stage presence. Elvis wasn't just about music. His stage presence was equally groundbreaking. When he performed, he didn't just sing, he commanded attention. His shows were filled with energy and charisma, leaving audiences mesmerized. A hallmark of his performances was his famous hip movements, which were considered daring for the conservative 1950s. These moves earned him the nickname Elvis the Pelvis, and, while controversial to older generations, only increased his popularity among the youth. Elvis had a unique ability to connect with his audience. He wasn't just performing, he was expressing something deeper that resonated with the emotions and desires of those watching. His performances often led to hysteria, especially among teenage girls who were captivated by his every move. This kind of reaction was unheard of, solidifying Elvis as a trailblazer in entertainment. Cultural impact. Elvis's influence went beyond music. He played a crucial role in shaping the cultural landscape of the 1950s and beyond. A key part of his legacy is how he helped break down racial barriers in the music industry. During a time of deep racial division in the U.S., Elvis brought African American music to a wider, predominantly white audience. His sound was heavily influenced by rhythm and blues, a genre deeply rooted in African American culture. By popularizing this style, Elvis helped bridge the cultural gap between black and white America. His success showed that music could cross racial lines and bring people together, even in a time of significant racial tension. Elvis's cultural impact also involved challenging societal norms. His style, performances, and choice of music were seen as rebellious, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. As a result, Elvis became a symbol of change and a catalyst for cultural shifts that lasted for decades. Media presence. Elvis wasn't just a music icon, on, he became a media sensation too. The rise of television in the 1950s gave him the perfect platform to reach an even larger audience. His appearances on popular TV shows, especially The Ed Sullivan Show, were pivotal moments in his career. These TV performances brought Elvis into millions of American homes, cementing his image as a national icon. His visual appeal and dynamic performances made him a natural fit for the television age. His ability to connect with audiences through the screen was unmatched, significantly boosting his fame. One of the most memorable TV moments was on September 9, 1956, when Elvis made his first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. This performance drew in over 60 million viewers, catapulting him into nationwide fame and making him a household name. Influence on fashion and style. Elvis's impact wasn't limited to music and media. He also left a lasting mark on fashion. His signature look, slicked back hair, flashy clothes, and prominent sideburns became iconic and was emulated by fans worldwide. Elvis's fashion sense was as bold as his music, helping to establish the rock and roll image. Fans wanted to dress like Elvis, style their hair like Elvis, and, in many ways, be like Elvis. His influence on fashion was so strong that it continued to shape trends long after his peak years. Elvis also pushed fashion boundaries, much like he did with music. Whether it was his leather jacket, jumpsuits, or the famous gold lame suit, Elvis's bold fashion choices reflected his larger-than-life personality and made a lasting impact on style. Humble beginnings. Elvis Presley was born on January 8, 1935, in a small two-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi. His twin brother, Jesse, was tragically stillborn, leaving Elvis as an only child. This loss deeply affected his mother, Gladys, who became extremely protective of him, a bond that remained strong throughout their lives. The Presley family faced many challenges, often struggling to make ends meet. Elvis's father, Vernon, took on various jobs, and the family frequently moved in search of better opportunities. Despite the hardships, Tupelo's rich musical environment left a lasting impression on Elvis. The family attended the Assembly of God Church, where Elvis first encountered gospel music. The emotional depth of the church music stayed with him, and Tupelo's mix of country, blues, and gospel helped shape his unique musical style. In 1946, when Elvis turned 11, his parents gave him his first guitar for his birthday, even though he had originally wanted a bicycle. The guitar quickly became his most treasured possession, offering him an escape from the difficulties of daily life. Elvis spent countless hours teaching himself to play, learning by listening to the radio and watching local musicians. This marked the beginning of his deep passion for music. Elvis was a shy and introverted child who often found comfort in retreating into his own world with his guitar. Music became his outlet for emotions he couldn't express in words, and his passion was evident to those around him. In 1948, when Elvis was 13, the Presley family moved to Memphis, Tennessee, hoping for better economic opportunities. This move was a turning point in Elvis's life. Memphis was a vibrant city with a rich musical history, especially on Beale Street, known for its blues, gospel, and rhythm and blues music. For Elvis, Memphis was a place of discovery, where he could explore new musical genres and expand his horizons. The city's lively music scene had a significant impact on Elvis. He spent hours listening to the radio, absorbing the sounds of artists like B.B. King and Muddy Waters. These early influences would later be reflected in his music as he blended blues, gospel, and country into a style that was uniquely his own. Moving to Memphis also brought new challenges. Elvis enrolled at Humes High School, where his shy demeanor and unique style made him stand out. He became a target for bullies, but despite these difficulties, Elvis remained focused on his music. He often brought his guitar to school, playing during lunch breaks and at school events. Though his peers didn't always appreciate his talent, Elvis was undeterred. His passion for music kept him going, even in the face of adversity. During his teenage years, Elvis began developing the style that would later make him famous. He experimented with different musical genres, blending gospel, blues, and country into a sound that was entirely his own. His unique voice, combined with his charisma and stage presence, made him stand out from other aspiring musicians of the time. Though he didn't know it yet, Elvis was laying the foundation for a career that would change the music world. Throughout these years, Elvis's family, particularly his mother Gladys, remained central to his life. She was a constant source of support and encouragement, believing in his talent and nurturing his love for music. Her faith in in him gave Elvis the confidence to pursue his dreams, even when the odds seemed stacked against him. By 1952, Elvis was on the verge of something big. Though still an unknown teenager, his talent and determination were clear. The stage was set for his rise to fame, and the world was about to witness the birth of a legend. The birth of a legend. In the early 1950s, Memphis was a hub of musical innovation, and it was here that Elvis Presley began his journey to stardom. At 18, Elvis recorded a few songs at Sun Studio in 1953 as a gift for his mother. What seemed like a simple gesture turned into something much bigger when Sun Studio owner Sam Phillips recognized something special in Elvis's voice. Phillips had been looking for a white artist who could capture the essence of African-American music, and in Elvis, he found that perfect blend. By 1954, Elvis was teamed up with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black, two seasoned musicians who helped shape his early sound. Together, they recorded That's All Right, a song that mixed rhythm and blues, country and gospel, creating a style that would later be called rockabilly. Though it wasn't an immediate hit, the song caught the attention of DJs and listeners, marking the beginning of Elvis's rise to fame. In 1955, Elvis spent much of the year touring the South, playing small venues and radio stations. His energetic performances and unique voice won him a growing fan base. By November, he signed a contract with RCA Victor, a major record label that catapulted him to national stardom. This marked his transition from regional fame to becoming a household name across the country. 1956 was the year Elvis truly broke through. In January, RCA Victor released Heartbreak Hotel, Elvis's first single under the label. The song quickly shot to #1 on the Billboard pop charts and sold over 1 million copies. Heartbreak Hotel wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural phenomenon that solidified Elvis's place in the music industry. March 1956 saw the release of Elvis's self-titled debut album, which dominated the Billboard charts for 10 weeks. This was a groundbreaking achievement, as it was the first rock and roll album to reach #1. The album's success made it clear that Elvis was no one-hit wonder. He was a force to be reckoned with. Elvis's rise to fame was also fueled by his television appearances. In June, he performed Hound Dog on The Milton Berle Show, where his hip-shaking dance moves caused a national stir. While conservative viewers were shocked, younger audiences were thrilled, and Elvis quickly became a symbol of rebellion and youthful energy. His appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show later that year drew record-breaking viewership, further cementing his status as the king of rock and roll. 1956 wasn't just about music for Elvis. He also made his film debut in Love Me Tender. The movie was a commercial success, showcasing his talents beyond the recording studio. By the end of the year, Elvis was the most commercially successful recording artist in the United States, achieving in 1 year what most artists could only dream of in a lifetime. Elvis's momentum continued into 1957 with the release of several more hits, including All Shook Up, which became another #1 single. That year, he also starred in 2 more films, Loving You and Jailhouse Rock, the latter featuring one of his most iconic performances. The Jailhouse Rock dance sequence remains one of the most memorable moments of his career. However, 1958 brought a major change to Elvis's life and career. In March, he was drafted into the U.S. Army, a move that many feared would derail his career. But his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, ensured Elvis stayed in the public eye by releasing pre-recorded music and films during his service. This strategy worked, and Elvis's popularity remained strong even while he served in the Army. Stationed in Germany, Elvis served as a regular soldier, far from the glamour of his previous life. Tragically, while in Germany, his beloved mother, Gladys, passed away in August 1958. Her death devastated Elvis, marking one of the darkest periods of his life. She had been his rock, and her loss left a deep void. Elvis was honorably discharged from the Army in March 1960, and fans eagerly awaited his return. Any doubts about his star power were quickly dispelled with the release of his first post-Army album, Elvis Is Back, which was a commercial success. The album showcased a more mature sound, reflecting his experiences during his time in the Army. His return to the silver screen was also successful, with GI Blues, released in November 1960, becoming a box office hit. Throughout the early 1960s, Elvis starred in a series of musicals, including Blue Hawaii, Girls, 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 and Viva Las Vegas, all of which featured best-selling soundtracks. While Elvis's films were popular, his music music during this period was often criticized for being formulaic. Critics felt he was no longer pushing musical boundaries as he had in the 1950s, focusing more on commercially safe tunes. Despite this, Elvis's popularity remained strong, and he continued to dominate the entertainment industry. By 1965, the rise of bands like the Beatles signaled a shift in popular music, and Elvis's style began to seem outdated to some. However, his influence on the music industry was undeniable. He had paved the way for rock and roll and cemented his legacy as the king of rock and roll. Even as new artists emerged, Elvis's impact on music and culture was firmly established. Continued success and final years. By the mid-1960s, Elvis Presley was at a crossroads in his career. Once known for his groundbreaking music and electrifying performances, Elvis had shifted his focus toward films and their soundtracks. Unfortunately, this change didn't sit well with critics or many of his fans. The king of rock and roll, who once led the music scene, was now seen as falling behind, with less original music and more movie track. Although his movies continued to perform well at the box office, keeping him in the public eye, it was clear that Elvis needed to make a strong return to music. Elvis got his chance in 1968 with the comeback special, officially titled Singer Presents Elvis. This televised event aired on December 3, 1968, and marked a significant turning point in his career. Dressed in a black leather suit, Elvis delivered raw, energetic performances that brought back memories of his early rock and roll days. The special was a huge success, not just in ratings, but also in re-establishing Elvis as a powerful force in music. It marked the start of his return to live performances, something he had, opening a new chapter in his career. In July 1969, he began a series of concerts at the International Hotel in Las Vegas, which quickly began to take a toll. To cope, Elvis started relying on prescription drugs, a dependency that would eventually have serious consequences for his health and career. In the early 1970s, Elvis continued to find success, with his live performances drawing large crowds across the U.S. His 1970 album, That's the Way It Is, and the accompanying documentary showcased his Las Vegas performances and his dedication to his craft. Both fans and critics praised these efforts, and it seemed like Elvis was back on top. In 1972, Elvis released Elvis on Tour, a concert film documenting his nationwide tour. The film was both a critical and commercial hit, even winning a Golden Globe for Best Documentary. It served as another reminder of Elvis's lasting impact on the music world. But behind the scenes, Elvis was struggling. His use of prescription drugs had escalated, leading to erratic behavior and inconsistencies in his performances. The once vibrant performer was now battling personal demons, though the public remained largely unaware, as Elvis maintained his image as a legendary entertainer. As the mid-1970s approached, the effects of Elvis's drug use and the relentless demands of his career began to show more openly. He began gaining weight, and his performances lacked the energy they once had. Despite this, Elvis continued to tour, driven by both professional commitment and financial necessity. In 1973, Elvis made television history again with Aloha from Hawaii via satellite, a live concert broadcast globally via satellite. The event reached around 1.5 billion viewers, making it one of the most watched TV events at the time. The concert was a success, further cementing Elvis's status as a global icon. However, behind the scenes, his health was deteriorating, with the pressures of touring and his growing drug dependency taking a significant toll. By 1976, it was clear to those close to Elvis that he was in serious decline. He became increasingly isolated, spending most of his time at Graceland, his estate in Memphis, Tennessee. His personal life was tumultuous, marked by failed relationships and an increasing reliance on medication. His physical appearance had changed dramatically. The once slim, dynamic performer was now overweight and often seemed disoriented. Despite his declining health, Elvis continued to perform. His final live performance took place on June 26, 1977, in Indianapolis. Those who were there describe a heart heartbreaking scene. Elvis was visibly struggling. His once powerful voice weakened, and his movements slow and labored. It was a stark contrast to the vibrant performer who had once captivated millions. On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley passed away at his Graceland home at the age of 42. The official cause of death was a heart attack, but it was widely understood that his long-term drug use played a significant role in his untimely death. The news shocked the world, as fans and fellow musicians mourned the loss of a man who not only revolutionized music, but also became a cultural icon. The detailed, hidden interview. In Elvis Presley's 1956 interview with TV Guide, he shared several candid insights that were, at the time, quite controversial. This wasn't an interview full of shocking confessions, but it did reveal aspects of his personality, struggles, and views on fame that the public wasn't meant to see. Here's what stands out: criticism and public perception. Elvis talked about the constant criticism he received for his provocative performances, especially his hip-swinging movements, which were seen as too sexual by many critics and conservative groups. In the interview, he expressed frustration over being labeled as a bad influence, especially since he didn't understand the outrage. He pointed out that he was just performing and didn't see himself as an immoral figure. This open discussion of how he felt under attack for his stage presence was rare at the time. Rejection of the heartthrob label. Elvis revealed his dissatisfaction with being seen primarily as a heartthrob rather than a serious musician. The public and media often fixated on his good looks and sensual performances, and while this contributed to his massive popularity, it also limited how people viewed his artistry. He wanted to be taken seriously as a musician and often felt trapped by the image that the media had created for him. Disconnection from fame. In this interview, Elvis also discussed the discomfort he felt about his sudden fame. He admitted that he sometimes felt lost in the celebrity lifestyle and found it difficult to adjust to the scrutiny that came with being a star. Though he was the biggest name in rock and roll at the time, there was a sense of isolation that he hadn't yet revealed publicly. This made him more human and relatable, but also exposed the pressures that came with being a cultural icon at such a young age. Defending his style. Another controversial moment was when Elvis defended his musical style and performance, which many saw as rebellious or immoral. At a time when rock and roll was considered a threat to societal norms, Elvis unapologetically stood by his performances. He argued that he wasn't doing anything wrong and that people were overreacting. In his view, his on-stage persona was part of the entertainment, not a call to rebellion. This was a bold stance during a period when rock music was seen as a dangerous influence on American youth. Candid about his roots. Elvis talked about his humble beginnings, describing how he grew up in poverty in Tupelo, Mississippi, and how that shaped his view of the world. This wasn't necessarily controversial, but it did challenge the image of the glamorous rock star that people assumed him to be. He made it clear that he didn't come from privilege and didn't see himself as anything more than a guy who got lucky. His raw honesty about his upbringing and not fully understanding the fame made him seem less like a manufactured star and more like someone who was just trying to navigate the complex world of celebrity. Accusations of racism in rock and roll. One of the more controversial revelations was when Elvis indirectly addressed accusations that his success was built on appropriating black music. While the interview didn't delve deeply into this issue, it was an underlying tension. Elvis was heavily influenced by black gospel and rhythm and blues, but at the time, the media rarely gave credit to the African-American musicians who helped shape rock and roll. His responses were more guarded, as this was a sensitive issue, but it's likely that this part of the interview was toned down or overlooked in the final published version to avoid controversy. What made it controversial? Elvis's candidness about his frustrations with fame, his defense of his controversial image, and his discomfort with the media portrayal of him as merely a sexual icon were things that likely didn't sit well with his handlers or the broader entertainment industry at the time. The public wasn't used to seeing a more vulnerable side of Elvis, and admitting any form of dissatisfaction could have hurt his clean, all-American image that was being marketed. The interview was never widely publicized because it showed a side of Elvis that didn't align with the polished, untouchable superstar image his management wanted to project. It showed him as a young man grappling with fame and the burden of being a cultural phenomenon, things the public wasn't supposed to see. Had the full interview been released at the time, it might have caused more backlash against him from conservative groups or or even distanced some of his fan base who idolized him as the perfect rock and roll icon.